You are 12 years old, and the morning mist coils around the stone steps like the fingers of ghosts too weary to haunt. The mountain is silent, and so are you. Your knees press against the cold, damp stone, and your bare feet have long since lost their feeling. You do not shiver anymore. Even your body has learned to obey. You wait. Behind you, a door creaks open, not with violence, but with ritual. Everything here happens slowly, with the solemnity of sacred performance. Footsteps approach, soft as breath, as inevitable as fate. You know who it is. You feel his presence before you hear his voice. You do not lift your eyes. You have already learned, looking up invites attention, and attention invites pain. He stops beside you. A long pause, then his hand, weathered and light, rests on your shoulder. It is not heavy, not cruel. It is worse. It is familiar. "This is your first morning," he says, and that's all. But you hear what is left unsaid. You are no longer a boy. You are no longer yours. You are a Chigo. You nod because that is what is expected. But inside, something begins to fall. Not a scream. Something softer. A thread of self unraveling. The last memory of home, of mother, of the name whispered to you in sleep. It slips through you like breath in winter. The temple smells of incense and old wood and something else you cannot name. Something sour, something wrong. You've been told it is holiness. But your skin says otherwise. Around you, older boys move through the shadows like phantoms. They do not speak unless spoken to. Their robes are clean, their steps graceful. They do not look at you. You do not yet understand why. Some have been here for months, others for years. Their eyes are not empty. They are full of things you cannot yet comprehend. Pain arranged neatly, secrets folded into silence. You try to remember your father's face, but it blurs. You try to remember why he let them take you, and that doesn't blur at all. They said it was an honor. They said you would serve the divine. They said the temple was sacred and your beauty was a gift. You want to believe it. You do. But your breath is caught in your chest and your shoulders ache from being still too long, and the hand still resting on you feels less like a blessing and more like possession. You are 12. You do not yet have the words for what is happening, but your body understands. And when the temple bells begin to ring, slow, deep, ancient, they do not comfort you. They do not call you to prayer. They announce something else entirely, that you are his now, that you belong to the temple, that your voice is no longer yours. And all around you, the world bows to this arrangement. The monks smile. The records say initiation. The visitors see nothing. The mountains keep their silence. This is not a story about a lost boy. This is a story about an entire world that made losing him possible. Welcome to medieval Japan, a land of exquisite art, elegant rituals, and horrors carved behind gold leaf and silk. Here, beauty is currency, innocence is meat, and the line between spiritual devotion and possession has long since vanished. Before we begin, know this. What follows is not legend. It is not metaphor. It is history, stripped bare of ceremony and told in the voices that were never meant to survive. And if you listen closely, you might still hear the bell. Not ringing, but breaking. Part 1, the veneer of holiness. They tell you the temple is pure, a place above desire, beyond cruelty, bathed in incense and lit by enlightenment. But that's only the surface, the lacquered wood, the solemn chants, the clean robes folded with geometric precision. Beneath it, something festers, and you begin to feel it, slowly, like poison in sweet tea. The first days blur. You are taught how to bow, how to fold your hands, how to silence your breath, how to keep your spine straight even when fear coils through your gut like a second spine, twisting tighter with every step. You are never alone, and yet you are lonelier than you have ever been. The older boys, the ones already broken into silence, move like shadows through the temple halls. They wear beauty like armor. Their hair is trimmed just so, their skin polished with oil, their steps careful as calligraphy. They never make eye contact. They speak in murmurs and glances. Some have stopped speaking altogether. You ask one once what comes next. He only shakes his head and walks away. You begin to learn that your body is not yours. It belongs to ritual now, to the quiet hand that adjusts your robes, to the eyes that linger too long on your mouth. to the monk who corrects your posture with fingers that rest just a moment too long on your hip. They say it is for training. They say it is devotion. But every part of you knows better. You wake before the sun, you bathe in freezing water, you comb your hair until your scalp bleeds. You are told which way to look, how wide to smile, when to breathe. The monk assigned to you is called your Nayudo, a guide, a spiritual father. He is neither. He is a man who watches you undress each morning under the pretense of modesty training, who corrects your posture with a hand on your thigh, who whispers poems about lotus blossoms and boyish grace while his fingers trace your jaw. At first, he is gentle. At first, you wonder if this is what they meant by bonding. But soon, the touches change. The smile becomes expectation. The expectation becomes ritual, and the ritual becomes a cage lined with silk. They dress you in robes finer than anything you've ever seen. Gold thread, delicate embroidery, soft enough to make you weep. They place a flower in your hair. They tell you, you are sacred now, chosen, elevated. But sacred does not mean safe. Elevated does not mean free. The others call you new, not with kindness, but with pity. They know what's coming. You don't, not yet. But the scent of it lingers in every hallway, in every corner where incense tries and fails to hide the smell of sweat and fear and shame. In the quiet hours before dawn, you hear things. You hear muffled sobs. You hear whispers between walls. You hear footsteps that don't belong on sacred ground. You begin to understand the shape of the silence that lives here. It is not peace, it is submission. One night, you see a boy being led away. His eyes are dry. He doesn't fight. He walks like it's already happened before. He returns before dawn, his robe askew, his lips split. No one says a word. Not the monks, not the boys, not even him. That silence, that is the holiest thing in this temple. The silence of survival. You start to walk like the others. You lower your gaze. You learn to smile with your mouth, not your eyes. You offer your body the way you offer incense, slowly, with shaking hands, pretending you understand. Because if you ask questions, they will answer. And the truth is far more terrifying than the silence. They call you Chigo, child attendant, disciple, flower of devotion. But what you are is beautiful. And in this place, beauty is the currency of suffering. There is no God in this temple. Only ritual, only hunger, only boys dressed in silk and silence, learning how to disappear without making a sound. Part 2, the machine of desire. There is no single monster. That's what terrifies you most. Not the man who touches too long, not the monk who watches you bathe, not the lord who collects boys like lacquered fans. No, the true horror is colder than that. It's paperwork, ledgers, custom, law. What happens to you isn't a secret, it's expected. You thought the monastery was a prison, but it's just one cog in a far older, far larger machine, one that turns silently behind painted screens and temple walls, oiled by silence, driven by beauty. And boys like you are the fuel. You are not alone, and you are not special. You were never chosen for your soul. You were chosen for your skin, for the line of your jaw, for the softness that hasn't yet been carved into manhood. Your suffering is not a sin in their eyes. It is a tradition, a practice, a bond. It has a name, Nanshoku, male colors. You hear the words whispered between monks like scripture. You see it inked in elegant calligraphy in temple texts. When love flows from the master to the boy, the path to enlightenment opens. A lie so polished it could pass for wisdom. The old masters recite these lines with reverence, as if they were prayers. But you see the way their eyes drift, always downward, always appraising. They use words like devotion, guidance, spiritual discipline. But your bruises don't know the difference between piety and possession. You begin to read the records, the hidden ones. They tell you everything. How monks scouted villages during times of famine. How families, starving, desperate, were offered coin for sons with the right look. How contracts were signed in front of Buddha statues. How the children were handed over in silence, like offerings to gods who never speak. One letter, dated a century ago, still haunts you. The boy from Yamashina has arrived. 12 winters, soft voice, skin pale. He does not speak much. This is ideal. The father cried at the gate, but accepted the coins. We begin his training tomorrow. Training. That word again. But training for what? Not meditation, not scripture, not truth. Training in how to walk, how to bow, how to fold your fear into grace, how to make your own body a gift for someone else's hunger. In the margins, the monk had written, malleable, promising, like a sword being forged, or a lamb being weighed. And just when you think you've seen the depths of it all, you hear whispers from boys who came not from temples, but from castles. The wakashu, boys taken as apprentices by samurai lords. Not monks this time, but warriors. Not robes, armor. Not scripture, swords. And yet, the same bruises. The same silence. The same cage. You hear the stories whispered under breath of lords who kept boys as both squires and bedwarmers, of battles fought by day and bodies claimed by night, of contests where boys were paraded and judged for obedience and skill, in war and in pleasure. No shame, no secrecy. It was custom. In some provinces, samurai swore oaths of loyalty with boys they later defiled. They wrote contracts, complete with seals and witnesses, declaring not just martial tutelage, but sexual rights. These were not hidden sins, they were status. A boy well trained in the ways of submission was a symbol of prestige, like a prized hawk or a flawless blade. One document, stained with time and blood, reads, "I trade to Lord Hirotsune 2 boys, both skilled in archery and knight service, in exchange for the stallion of the North Ridge. May they bring him the same satisfaction they have brought me." You stop reading after that, because the words feel like knives and there are too many of them. But the stories keep coming. Some boys, once beautiful, once desired, were discarded when their voices cracked. Some were maimed, not by enemies in war, but by their own masters, to ensure obedience. Others were traded like tools, like beasts, like property that could smile. And you realize, you were never meant to become anything. Not a monk, not a man, not even a memory. You were meant to be used. And when the light fades from your skin and the softness leaves your voice, you will be replaced. The machine will not pause. It will not weep. It will simply reach for the next boy, the next name, the next gift. And so the system grinds forward, silken, sacred, unspeakable. Everyone plays their part. The monk who teaches you how to kneel, the samurai who teaches you how to serve, the temple servant who looks away, the scribe who writes your name and marks your price, the parent who signs with shaking hands, the world that sees and decides not to look closer. You lie awake at night and feel the weight of it all. Not just your own pain, but the pain of thousands. You are not the first. You will not be the last. And still the bells ring, slow, sacred, indifferent. But now, you start to wonder, what if they weren't always meant to echo holiness? What if once, long ago, they were rung to warn? To say, beware, turn back, something here is hungry. And now it's feeding again. Part 3, Whispers of Fire. You are 13 now. Only a year has passed, and you are no longer the boy who knelt on the stone steps. That boy is buried somewhere deep inside you, beneath the silence, beneath the shame, beneath the obedience stitched into your every movement. He speaks to you sometimes in dreams. He asks, "What have we become?" You don't answer, but your fingers twitch when they shouldn't. Your eyes linger too long on doors left ajar, and your chest burns with something you don't yet dare to name. One morning in the scripture room, you find a letter, tucked between brittle pages, sealed with wax long cracked. It isn't a prayer, it's a ledger, a list of boys, names, ages, villages, purchase amounts. Your name is there. So is Kenta's, so is Riku's, so is the boy who vanished last winter and was never spoken of again. In the margins, skin pale, unbroken, family compliant. And beneath it all, in a different hand, scrawled like confession, begin with kindness, warm food, clean robes, gentle touch. Gratitude opens the gate, then the body follows. You read it again, then a third time, each word an axe to the roots of everything you were told was holy. You shake, but not with fear, not with sorrow, with rage. Quiet, slow burning, the kind of rage that doesn't scream, the kind that waits, the kind that learns. That night you slip the letter back in place perfectly. You go to morning prayers, you bow when told, you smile with your mouth, and you begin to watch. Who touches whom, who looks too long, who flinches when incense burns. You begin to see, Kenjiro is the first. A boy with eyes like polished stone and scars on his thighs. His Enyudo died 2 months ago. A drunkard found face down in the koi pond. No one cried. Since then, Kenjiro moves like smoke, quiet, half invisible. But you've seen the tremor in his hand when he touches the prayer beads. You've seen the teeth marks on his palm. You've seen the hatred barely buried under the calm. You speak to him one evening, not directly. You whisper a phrase from the letter, soft as dust. Gratitude opens the gate. He goes still. Then he looks at you, and he nods. You tell him everything. He doesn't weep. He doesn't tremble. He simply says, "Tell me what we must do." Within a week, there are 5 of you. All boys, all Chigo, each with different scars, each fluent in silence. You call yourselves nothing. You meet only in passing. You speak in fragments. A word here, a glance there, fingers traced on a wooden wall in the dark. But you begin. You begin small. The tea you prepare for the monks tastes slightly off. A pinch of bitter root. Nothing fatal, just enough to ruin their appetite. The ceremonial sandals are placed slightly out of line. The copied scriptures have deliberate errors, verses inverted, names misspelled. One day, you place a fresh lotus at the Buddha's feet, but hide a dead wasp inside its petals. A monk is stung when he offers it. He screams. You do not smile, but inside something stirs. Agency, the realization that you are no longer a passive thing, no longer meat wrapped in prayer. You are a blade buried for too long, and now you are remembering your edge. Each act of resistance is small, insignificant if seen alone, but together they become a pattern, a breath of wind before the fire, and you begin to gather stories, not just from your temple, but from travelers, servants, forgotten letters left carelessly in storerooms. You learn of Muko Kai, the Facing West Society, a network of survivors, boys who escaped, men who remember, merchants who trade in whispers, not silk. They move like shadows through port towns and mountain passes. They know the temples that feed on boys. They know which monks bleed, and they are listening. You find a contact. A letter is sent, hidden in a scroll of copied sutras. Simple words, plain script, but every syllable is a flare in the night. We remember, we are ready, we await the door. A month later, the reply comes. No name, just a place, a time, and 3 marks, a triangle, pointing west. The escape is planned. 15 boys, 1 night, 1 chance. It will be during the Autumn Moon Festival. The monks will be drinking. The gates will be open for guests. You memorize the routes, the guard rotations, the songs the servants hum when they carry messages between kitchens. Everything is set. And then, 2 nights before the festival, Tadamani, 13, gentle, easily frightened, disappears from prayers. You feel it in your spine before you hear the footsteps. They come for you before dawn. Your hands are bound. You do not scream. But as they drag you to the temple hall, past the statues, past the silent boys who dare not look, you feel something deeper than fear, fury, because even if they break your fingers, even if they scar your face, even if they bury your name beneath stone and silence, the fire has already started, and fire is not so easily unlearned. Part 4. The Fall. There is no trial. There are no questions. Only punishment, fast, theatrical, exact. They drag you into the main hall, bound, gagged, and barefoot. The stone is wet with morning condensation. It feels like ice beneath your knees. You count the others as they are pulled in behind you. Kenjiro, Shin, Little Taro with his bleeding nose, Riku still defiant, still trying to spit through the gag. The last is Tadamani, eyes red, head lowered. He will not meet your gaze. You do not need him to. You already understand. Fear. It always was fear. Not malice, not cruelty. Just that old, hungry god, the one that lives in small boys forced to kneel for too long. Still, something inside you closes. A door slams shut. And Tadamani, for all his apologies, for all his tears, becomes a ghost you will never speak to again. The hall is full. Monks line the walls. Boys sit in rows, forced to watch. The incense burns so thick it makes you gag. But even that cannot mask the stench of power. The abbot steps forward, white-robed, serene, terrifying. He does not shout. He does not need to. He speaks of betrayal, of sacred oaths, of the danger of foreign ideas corrupting pure hearts, of mercy, and yes, mercy, for those who confess. He calls you sick. He calls you lost. He calls you children, and then he orders them to begin. They start with you. You do not scream when the first finger is crushed, or the second, or the third. The mallet is wooden, curved, almost beautiful. The man who swings it chants while he strikes. Your hands are ruined. Broken tools never to hold a brush, a spoon, or a boy's trembling hand in comfort again. Next is Kenjiro. They pierce his tongue with hot needles. He does not cry, but when they pull the iron from his mouth, blood streams down his chin like a second voice, one louder than anything he could have said aloud. The younger boys, Riku, Taro, are branded on their forearms. A mark carved with bamboo, a symbol of their crime, resistance. The monks call it a blessing. They say it will remind the boys to obey. The ceremony lasts for hours, and when it ends, they do not send you to the infirmary. They do not let you rest. They reassign you. You, the ringleader, the instigator, the threat, are now a teacher. Your job is to indoctrinate the new boys, to show them the path of submission, to hold their shoulders during their first ceremony, to whisper in their ears that obedience brings peace. Your mangled hands are covered in silk gloves. Your mouth is trained to smile again. Your heart is not consulted. You are not a person now. You are a warning, a monument to what happens when a child forgets his place. You do your duty. You speak the lies you once burned to resist. You guide trembling boys through the rituals you once swore to destroy. You watch their faces go hollow, and inside something dies every time. But not all of you. There is a piece, small, sharp, silent, that survives. A seed, a spark, and outside these walls, the wind has shifted. You begin to hear whispers, brought by visiting monks, passed through servants, etched into the margins of borrowed scrolls. There are others. The Mukokai grows stronger. Some temples are losing boys. Some monks are vanishing. A new name appears in the smoke, Jiro, not a dreamer, a fighter. He does not run. He strikes. Poison in teacups, ropes cut in the night, fires started in libraries, records destroyed, scribes vanished. He does not believe in mercy. He believes in fear, the kind that changes things. And the monks are afraid. They add guards. They check food. They sleep in groups. But they cannot stop what has begun. Because now the question is not if the system will fall, it's when, and how many will burn with it. You sit by the window silent, gloves on your broken hands. Below, the new boys are arriving. They smile uncertain. They look at you and you smile back, carefully, perfectly. But when they pass, you whisper to one, so low he thinks he imagined it. It isn't your fault, and for the first time in months, your voice does not feel like treason. It feels like fire. Part 5, Ashes and Rebirth. The temple still stands. Its walls still hum with prayer. Its bells still ring. Its incense still clouds the rafters. But something has shifted. Not in the rituals, not in the robes, but in the boys. They no longer kneel the same way. They look longer. They speak more. They pass words like smuggled jewels, carved into the backs of bowls, scratched into the corners of scrolls, whispered into mouths under moonlight. Because the story of you, and of Kenjiro, of Riku, of Jiro, has spread. It began as rumor, then became legend, then became instruction. Now the Mukokai is not just a whisper, it is a network, precise, vast, invisible. Former temple boys who escaped, who survived, who learned to wield ink and coin instead of blades. They forge documents, they intercept supply routes, they infiltrate monasteries as merchants, pilgrims, scribes. They plant seeds, and you, your ruined hands hidden in gloves of silk, become a gardener. You do not fight anymore, you teach, but not the way they expect. You teach the boys how to think behind their silence, how to observe without showing it, how to recognize who watches them, and why. You do it in riddles, in parables, in pauses too long to be coincidence. Some understand, some do not, but the ones who do, they change. One day, a boy named Kaito, 10 years old, with a voice too soft for this world, asks you quietly, "If the gods are real, why do they let this happen?" You do not speak for a long time. Then you say, "Maybe gods aren't something we find in temples. Maybe gods are what we become when we refuse to turn into monsters." He nods. And you know, he is ready. You arrange his escape, disguised as a courier's son, smuggled out under the festival drums. You never see him again, but you hear, years later, that a healer named Kaito has opened a school for abandoned children near the port of Osaka, that he never raises his voice, that his hands, even when tired, never tremble, that he tells the boys under his care, "You do not have to be useful to be loved." One escape becomes 10, then 20. Entire monasteries begin to rot from within. The older monks grow paranoid, they burn records, they accuse each other of betrayal, they hire mercenaries to guard boys who no longer flinch. Some temples close, others collapse in scandal, a few, desperate to survive, begin to change. They stop taking children, they stop arranging mentorships, they start letting boys choose. It is not mercy, it is survival, but it is change, and it spreads. You leave the temple before your 30th year. No one stops you. They do not know what to do with you anymore. You settle in Kyoto, in a district of craftsmen, scholars, widows, and ghosts. You buy a small ruined building. People think you are mad, but you see what it could be. With help from the fellowship, you rebuild it brick by broken brick. A school, a sanctuary, a place where the words obedience and discipline are replaced with understanding and choice. You name it the Restoration House. It begins with 7 boys, then 12, then 30. None of them are asked to pray. None of them are touched without consent. None of them are told they were ever meant to suffer. You teach them letters, stories, histories too long buried. You teach them the word resistance. But more than that, you teach them how to live without it. One day, decades later, a letter arrives. The wax seal bears a symbol you thought forgotten. A triangle pointing west. Inside, a name, Jiro. He is old now, his joints ache, his eyes dim. But his fire is undiminished. He writes, "We've bought the land where the old mountain temple once stood. The stones will be used for homes, the altar for a school. The bell we have not melted. We let it ring once more, not as a warning, not as a curse, but as a funeral." You read the letter 3 times. Then you walk out into the yard where the boys are playing. One sees you crying and asks, "What's wrong?" You shake your head and say, "Nothing is wrong, not anymore. The bell has rung, the world has heard it." And in that moment you understand. You were never meant to survive, but you did. You were never meant to speak, but you have. You were never meant to build, but here around you, in wood, in laughter, in boys who have never been touched in fear, is a kingdom no temple ever deserved. And every day, every lesson, every boy who learns to live without shame, without silence, without chains, is a prayer louder than any drum. Let the old world burn. Let the ashes rise. This is the rebirth.